yet, and they're seeking, and they may not even want to be here very long, and so that's just a word that some seekers might not feel comfortable with. So we say the story, and the whole thing is in here is all about the story, so it fits that. So I don't, Sue, do you want to start by sharing your story?
My name is Sue Jacobs. For those of you who don't know me, I've been going to New Life for approximately 3 years. I'm married to my husband. We'll celebrate our 29th anniversary this year. We have 2 young adult children, Andrew and Whitney. I'd like to actually start my story with the actual starting point in my life that I think really defines my life and where it's headed. I was born in San Francisco, and I was one of 5 children. When I was 6 years old, my parents decided to move their growing family to the suburbs. We moved to Walnut Creek, which was actually more rural than suburb at the time. It was really just walnut orchards and a small creek. More importantly, one of my father's colleagues' families lived just a block away from us. And the Whites stopped by to visit and welcome us and invite us to church. My mother didn't originally start attending with us, but this woman picked my older sister and I up every week for several years to attend church with her. As a young child, I had a strong desire to know and learn about God. And so throughout my early years and teen years, I was very involved in Sunday school, junior church, youth leadership. And I attended that church for nearly 50 years. Wow. I cannot begin to articulate the importance of the role that church, its people, my friends played in my life and in my story within his story. My closest and dearest friends are ones I attended Sunday school with since I was 6 years old. We've shared the last 50 years of life, the joys, the sorrows, and God's wonderful grace. They have played such a vital role in my story. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to meet up with this woman and to thank her for what she did for me and the impact that one small gesture of hospitality had on my life. I also had last year at Women's Retreat here at New Life to get reacquainted with her daughter and to thank her. She also attends New Life. And I say that because it really was the starting point of my life and my journey of faith, even though there were some twists and turns along the way. I didn't get married until I was 31. This is another defining moment. And I had a successful career. But once I had my son, it was just very difficult for me to go back and leave him in somebody else's care. So I had the option of being a stay-at-home mom, and I happily chose to do that. I worked part-time here and there while my kids were in school. But 18 years, and never really anticipated going back to work full-time. I really loved my life and just didn't see a need to do that. However, about 10 years ago, circumstances changed, and my husband lost his job due to a reduction in force. So after about a year or so of him being unemployed, it became apparent I should dust off my resume and fine-tune it and start looking. Well, about that time, a friend of mine worked for Bank of America, and she suggested that I give her my resume and she would forward it on. About a week later, I got a call from an executive, I got an interview, and a couple days later, an offer for a job. I was somewhat thrilled, a little reluctant. I wanted one more summer at home with my daughter before she was a senior in high school. And so I agreed to take the job, and an hour later, the executive called me back and said, "I'm so sorry, but there's been a freeze on hiring. I have to withdraw the job offer for a permanent job, but perhaps you'd be interested in coming on as temp, and then we'll move you into the permanent job once the freeze." I again said okay, and an hour later got another call that all jobs had been frozen. They would keep my resume on file. Well, I wasn't very confident that, I don't know how many times you've heard, keep your resume on file, so I wasn't very confident that that was going to happen. But a year to the month later, that same executive called me. And she said another executive was moving from Texas and that I would be the perfect fit to work with that team. And would I come in as a temp for a couple months until she got relocated? So I did that. When this executive from Texas was coming to the Bay Area for interviews, I was denied the opportunity for an interview because my immediate supervisor said it would be a hardship on the line of business I was currently working for. So I was like, okay, God, I know you're directing my steps. And there have been few times in my life that I really knew exactly where God was taking me. This was one of them. And so I knew that job was really exactly where God wanted me, but I had no idea how to get there. So I prayed. I just said, you know, you're in control, whatever. And a week later, the interview, she had come out for the interview, she'd gone back to Texas, and the recruiter called and said, for some reason, they wanted to do a telephone interview. And I said, fine, set it up. 2 days later, the admin for the recruiter called and said, I don't know what you said, but you have the job. And you're moving upstairs next week. And I said, I never had a telephone interview. I've never spoken to the woman. I've never met her. And long story short, that executive moved to California. She became one of my dearest friends. She came to church with me one Sunday and asked Jesus to be her Lord and Savior. And so I knew it was appointed for me to be there. And I have to tell you that sometimes working at the bank, I get up and I go, how can I get motivated to sell the bank every day? And God says, that's not what you're there for. You're there for build relationships. And so the future to me is bright because I look forward to Him using me to affect other people's stories. And one thing about Karina that I'm really thrilled about, she goes to a church similar to New Life in New Mexico. She's involved in a ladies' Bible study, and her daughter goes to a Christian school as well. So that's my story.
That's great that you have a ministry at work, because that's a hard thing for a lot of people.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Marcy.
And Marshall, I'll give you a finger when we've got 1 minute left.
Oh, it won't be that, sweetie. No worries. No worries.
We just wait and see.
Hostile witness on board, I'm telling you.
First of all, let me give a disclaimer up front. I didn't know there were going to be gentlemen here tonight. So. Okay, first of all, defining moments. I went to Harvard, have 3 PhDs. I was a Golden Globe nominee for my Victoria's Secret commercial.
Is this where we're going to start some sanity? When we have a liar?
Nobel Peace Prize, 1977. And I am going to win the 2011 HGTV Dream Home in Stowe, Vermont.
But that competition, buddy. Competition.
Gary said there's not going to be any guys there, and I don't know. Yeah. Okay, I divided my 4 defining moments into 4 categories. Spiritual, family, my teaching career, and then ministry. I was raised in a pastor's home. My dad did home missions in North Dakota and South Dakota. And my first decision to become a Christian, I was 9 years old at kids camp in Devils Lake, North Dakota. And I remember it was the first time I made that decision. And then I remember again when I was in high school, I went to youth camp, and same thing. But I remember one of the most momentous spiritual decisions. I had a boyfriend in high school. We were pretty serious, talking about getting married, and he was trying to talk me into doing things I knew were wrong. And I just remember taking my Bible outside one day and praying, and I remember God spoke into my heart. Someday you're going to work with teenagers. If you can't stand for me, how can you talk with girls and tell them that they can do it? So I broke up with him and I went to Bethany. And there I met Gary. My first day, my sophomore year, Gary walked in and my roommates and I were all going, oh, it's about time someone like that came to Bethany. It was too funny. So we dated for 3 years. And I think part of the conflict I had is I didn't want to be a pastor's wife because my dad was a pastor. Like, I don't want to go that route. But yet I knew that God had called me there. But it was like, I think it was like internal conflict because I don't play the piano and sing. I mean, hello. There were guys at Bethany that would not date a girl that didn't play the piano and sing if they were going to ministry. And so it was like, Yeah, that was hard for me. So
It's a generation.
it was definitely a generational thing, but not still in some areas of the world. But so then I'm in my family segment now. We've got 3 kids and we've got 3 grandchildren, and they're wonderful. And I mean, thank God for the blessing of family. And then on to my career. I graduated from Bethany with a teaching credential, and I really never thought I would use it. I subbed for 13 years thinking I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom, and I would sub on Gary's day off. He'd stay with the kids, and then I started when we went to Woodland outside of Sacramento. I was the children's pastor there, and so we kind of worked it with a family. So I was really a stay-at-home mom, and not until we were pastoring in Burlingame I fell into a job. I was subbing long-term. The teacher never came back, and their class was so horrible, and I was such a horrible child in the class that she wouldn't come back. And so they faxed me a contract, and I signed it because the parents had threatened to go to the superintendent if they didn't give it to me. And so they have to usually post jobs and interview, and they bypassed all this, faxed it to me. But it was definitely the Lord, because we were buying a church parsonage for the Burlingame Church, 3 cities, and the banks would not loan to a church. But because I signed that contract, they used my contract to buy the church parsonage, and then we sold it back to the church. And so it was, the Lord used teaching in my career, even though I never thought I would do it, to be able to work with ministry. And then when we were in San Diego, I never thought I would work full-time, and I was subbing at a school, and one of the kindergarten teachers, who was a pastor's wife also, asked me if I would job share with her. So I said, job share, I can do that. And so 2 days a week, 2.5 days a week, that'd be great. So I interviewed for it, went through the whole process, and then at the end of summer, that's when the 20-to-1 ratio came in, for class size reduction, and all of a sudden she had to go full-time. The principal called me and said, would you be interested in going full-time? I was like, I hadn't thought about it. I guess we need to talk about it. And so we figured, well, with all the benefits and everything, I'll do it. And it was the Lord, but I had never planned on teaching full-time. But yet, looking back on it, I was able to get so many kids in my school into Royal Family Kids Camp. If you guys know what Royal Family Kids Camp is, it works with abused and exploited children. And anytime I had a kid come through my room that was in foster care or adopted or anything, I'd go talk to them, we'd start the process, turn them over to the church, and I was even able at one time to get 2 kids in my school who were going to be adopted by a gay family in Sacramento. And we were able to stop the process and go to another family I knew had been cleared to adopt, and we got them to adopt the girls so that they didn't have to go through that process. But so the Lord has used teaching, and then I'm retired after only 14 years of teaching, but it's a smittens of a paycheck, but at least I was able to keep our full health benefits. With the San Diego County Schools, I have my full dental, my full health, my chiropractic, everything for both Gary and I. So it was worth it, just for that small time. And then with ministry, we've been since 1977 in Nevada, Ohio, Northern Cal, Southern Cal. Really, I've taken that long.
Totally.
And I've done everything. We've been youth pastors. I ran the junior high department. I was a children's pastor, went to women's, and then now I'm back to children's. It's kind of like full circle. And we've had good times, we've had bad times, but Lord's been faithful, and just keep trusting Him. That's it.
I'm really struck by that decision you made. Still thinking about it with your